We are born free.
And we will die free.
The time in between, though,
that's complicated.
In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom here on the Lions of Liberty Podcast Network. I am your host, John Odermatt, and we have an awesome episode for you guys today. Really excited for you guys to meet my guest, who I'll introduce in just a moment. He's the CEO of Above Phone, which is a revolutionary privacy phone, and you're going to get a bunch of details on it. You're going to, if you do watch the video on YouTube, which we're live streaming now on YouTube, on Twitter, on Rumble, you will be able to see that video as well. So I'll introduce Hakeem Anwar in just a minute here. I see we just lost the video feed of him. So what I do want to talk about in the meantime is that with Above Phone, we do have an affiliate deal here at Lions of Liberty. So you'll be able to save $50 on a purchase of an Above Phone, which you're going to learn about here during this episode, everything that it's capable of. I just got my Above Phone last week. I had my onboarding call today, and I was set up, able to message, able to call, able to do voice calls. There's a lot of different options, a lot of different apps that do all the things you do on your regular phone, but you're able to do it with the assurance of privacy, which is incredible. And the code for you to be able to get an Above Phone of your own, which of course I'll mention again later and have on the show notes page. But if you go to abovephone.com and if you put coupon code LIONS in the coupon code box there, you can save $50 on an Above Phone. So let's bring Hakeem on the show here. And Hakeem is the CEO of Above Phone. And like I explained a moment ago, Above Phone is a secure phone that uses open source software to create a suite of apps that perform just like the phone that you carry around in your pocket, but you have that assurance of privacy. Hakeem, welcome to Finding Freedom.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Blessings. And hey, congratulations on your going deeper into agorism. I was listening to your latest announcement, and it's a really freeing feeling when you're completely responsible for your own production in the world.
Yeah, it's funny how, things kind of just align all at the right time. And, I believe that things do kind of happen for a reason for us, or at least are laid out in a way that we can take advantage of them. And I just think it's amazing that, Above Phone, this technology, I became aware of it right at this time, because like you said, it's an exciting, time for me for change, for opportunity. So things, I'm really excited about the future, and I'm excited for my audience to learn about Above Phone because I think people are going to be absolutely blown away by this. But before we get to that, if we could get some background on you, so my audience can kind of learn about who you are and really your journey into agorism, which ultimately led to Above Phone.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of break my life into a past life and then a current life, which happens after you make the jump, right? It happens after you make 100% commitment to try and live outside the system as best as you can. And for me, in my past life, I was a software engineer. I've been doing that for about half a decade. I had built web and mobile applications. I had done cloud infrastructure, robotic process automation, you name it. I had probably messed around with it. Maybe I was a little too ambitious for my own good. And since college, I had already been awakened, and it was kind of when you're awakened and you go into the workforce, you end up feeling like the black sheep. You end up feeling like what's the point of all this when you know how badly things are falling apart under the seams, and everyone at work seems to not pay any attention to the real issues. So of course I felt unfulfilled for a long time, but I made it my way up my career, and I ended up working in New York City. And it was at the height of my career that the pandemic happened, COVID 1984, and I got to be in Manhattan to see it happen. So wow. It was a it was a real kick in the pants, right? To realize how fragile your constructed worldview is if you're dependent on these systems. And for me, that was a really big wake up call. And I realized I don't want to build this prison around me, right? They need software engineers to help build the surveillance state, and I didn't want any part of that. So luckily, I'd been working with Derek Bros and John Bush of the Freedom Cell Network. And they had created this mutual aid network where people could get together and build their lives around voluntary relationships. And so I've been working with them for a little bit and helping improve parts of the website and the technical infrastructure. And that ended up evolving into me just taking over the website at the time. And it was that year, right? The year when the pandemic happened, where people would walk around and saw that everyone just listened and stayed indoors, and they wondered, where are all the sane people at? Well, I think we all were feeling the same thing. We were all freaked out. We we're like, it's happening. They're coming around. They're going to kick our doors, and they might try and force medicine down our throats or into our arms. And I think we all looked at the internet at the same time, and that's what happened for the website. We saw it go from a few thousand people to 40,000 people in the span of a year or two. And so that was really exciting. And I got to ride that wave. And as a part of that, helping people in the community out with their technology needs. It got me to understand, like, oh man, if there's anyone who is marginalized and needs help with their privacy and security online, it's those of us in the freedom movement, right? Because we do get targeted. And I'm sure, as you know, having run a long-standing freedom podcast, that it's an uphill battle. Google doesn't want to let these ideas flourish. And so eventually that culminated into us finding out, all right, what's the best way we can use technology? And that one of the first products we developed ended up being Above Phone. And then we released a bunch of communication services people could use for private communications. More recently, we have a laptop. So we're really trying to build a healthy ecosystem, a friendly ecosystem, a free ecosystem for people to make their impact on the world through technology. Yeah, and it's not like it's an ecosystem where, at least, from my experience with Above Phone today, these are apps that, they're private apps. They're different than, maybe what people are used to if they're used to going and using Gmail and things like that, or, whatever people use for video streaming. But you're going to be able to, if you have an above phone, you can create a video stream with someone, who doesn't have an Above Phone. It's not like everyone has to be, in the same, have the exact same ideology as you and on the same page. It's not like you're going and, living on an island by yourself. You're really just protecting yourself as the way that I understand it. So to get a little bit, I guess, to set the stage here, I think it's probably important for people to understand, especially people in the audience here who are in the freedom community, like you said, who are maybe more outspoken on Twitter, outspoken in their private messages, outspoken when they're talking in the DMs, to understand really, what the risks are, and really just how they really don't have any privacy with those messages. Sure, I'll do a little bit of a call out, right? Because I think people are coming around to the ideas of freedom and libertarianism, and now you could almost say it's mainstream to a degree. But I think that people rally around the ideas, but it's rare for someone to actually be living all of those ideas out, and that it's understandable to a degree. But to believe in minimizing government and then using technology products that are literally extensions of the government is contradictory to those values. And so the main danger is, yes, this is all like military surveillance technology. Most of these companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they all have multi-billion-dollar contracts with state agencies, whether that's the NSA or the U.S. Army, you name it. Any of these big tech companies likely have contracts, because I mean, to have operations at that scale, you would need to use a company like this. But they also get unfair, basically special treatment, and you see that a lot. And we can go into this a little bit later, but they get special treatment. For instance, AT&T recently got hacked, and there's some special treatment because they work so closely hand in hand with the government, whether that's the NSA for the Fairview and Blarney programs, or around that same time, the DEA for the Hemisphere program. So yeah, I mean, essentially, it's understanding what ecosystem you want to contribute towards. There is a network effect. One of my things that I campaign on is for us to get rid of phone numbers entirely. Specifically for this reason, is because all telecommunications traffic is surveilled. It's legally obligated to be surveilled. And that's why some of our telecom is designed the way that it is. It's designed so that the government could request, or law enforcement can easily request access. They can't necessarily do that for internet-based communication. So it's all about finding, understanding how this technology works, how you might be surveilled, and choosing the better choice. Now, I'll just briefly talk a little bit about, like, at a general level, what the above phone is. Before we released the product, I went down a rabbit hole in trying to understand mobile privacy and security, and I essentially saw three layers. One, there's the operating system of the phone itself. So that is the core of the phone, right? That's what you're interacting with when you change the settings and whatnot. And on a normal phone, when you change the settings, you're constantly talking back to Google if it's an Android phone, or Apple if it's an iOS phone. And if there's been independent studies showing that normal phones will ping back to these servers every 5 minutes. And also that there's this illusion of privacy where they give you these options. Oh, would you like to minimize the amount of tracking and analytics that are happening? Would you like to be more private with your phone? And you say, of course I do. Yeah, I think everyone would pick yes if presented the options. But in actuality, the options are there just to tickle your, to entertain you, and they don't actually do anything. They don't actually have any significant privacy improvements. So when you use a normal phone, you have to understand that there are unique identifiers related to your phone, the hardware, the phone number, the SIM card you're using, the advertising ID, whether you're on the Google Android ecosystem with the Android ID, or the Apple advertising ID. All of these are being sent constantly and in different contexts. So that's the operating system level. There's also the apps on the phone. When you realize, and you can realize if you look at some of the different third-party libraries in these apps, that is also heavily controlled by large players in big tech, right? Alphabet, the parent company behind Google, owns most of the analytics and advertising providers in the Android ecosystem. So not only are they logging at what's happening at the core level of your phone, but they also have access through subsidiary sharing agreements to what you're doing inside of the apps. And of course, these apps, on average, there's 5 different trackers embedded in an app on the Google Play Store. On iOS, there might be they measure them in a different way in terms of like the independent study that's happened, but on average, there's 2.5 third-party requests. So that means like the app is connecting to websites that aren't actually affiliated with the app's developers, right? So there's the application layer, and last is the telecommunications layer, which I think I've said a little bit about, but essentially phone calls and texts are not private. So all of these three things together, The above phone directly combats this. One, by using an operating system that is devoid of tracking to Google. Two, by offering you free and open source applications that are transparent, that don't have these analytics and advertisers in them. And three, by recommending and encouraging and making it easy to use internet-based encrypted communications to stay in touch with people. So it's a really holistic view of privacy, right? It's not like one little thing that you can do. It's not one thing you can change. You kind of have to refresh your entire technology stack to protect yourself in the best way for this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a major shift, I think, in the way that you look at your phone. And, maybe I don't think this is just me. I think probably a lot of people will nod along as they hear me say this. But in the past, as libertarians, freedom lovers, I think we're all aware that we're being monitored and we don't have privacy. But it had kind of become a situation where, well, what do we do about it? Yes, they can see everything we're saying, but what do we do? Yes, if I mention that, I need to buy, if I'm going on a fishing trip and I need to buy a new fishing rod, all of a sudden I start seeing ads in my social media feeds for, fishing rods or fishing charters or whatever. It's become like a joke, but it's real. Like, people are very aware this is happening. So I think it's amazing that now Above Phone comes along and now we have a solution. And I mean, that is the perfect, when you talk about the world of business and sales, we have a major problem that hasn't had a solution, at least a workable solution. And now we have that now with Above Phone. So I don't know how you want to transition into, I know in the video side, you want to show some of the features of Above Phone. Do you want to get into that now?
Sure. And I do want to respond to your point too about, saying something and then having it appear as an advertisement on the phone. I mean, there's so much going on there. But the reason that happens is because of these centralized software services. I term them abusive software services because it's kind of like an abusive partner or an abusive friend in a relationship, right? It's like, are you spying on me? Because I get all these signs that you're spying on me, and then when you go to spokespeople at these companies, they're like, no, we're not recording the microphone. It's like, really though? And just the level of surveillance, the level of bold-faced lying, the level of having like little loopholes and manipulative tricks in the way they word things, and also how they keep you trapped in their ecosystem. So they make it really hard for you to move. Because I think there are some good parts about some of their technology, right, that have changed how the world works. But the danger is when two companies, Apple and Google, are responsible for 99% of phones. That's almost 7 billion phones, one for every person on Earth, and they can deploy software to every phone at the same time, right? That's exactly how contact tracing was deployed, right? It all became available on our phones. You can opt into it, except in the case of Massachusetts, where it automatically got installed and turned on, if you heard about that. And the location services for a digital payment system. And it's most likely to, on a more serious note, how things like the digital ID, vaccine passports and social credit scores, right? That phone is going to be an integral part of this. So when you get a phone like this, you are disconnecting yourself from those abusive software systems. And that's one of the most important parts.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. So when I received my Above Phone about a week ago, I started reading more about it. And then I just had my onboarding call today. So this is August 1st as we're recording this. And if you're watching live, welcome. Feel free to ask a question if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, any of those. But received it today, or had my onboarding call today, and was really blown away by, I currently still do have my iPhone, but I was able to set up and use this Above Phone without a SIM card and be able to make calls, be able to send text messages, be able to do video conferencing, and do everything that a normal phone does and not have the downside of the SIM card. Now, I mean, and you'll get into this too. Of course, you can take your SIM card from your old phone and put it in, but right, there are some privacy concerns with that, right? With just the SIM card, as you talked about.
Totally. Yeah. And so there is it's one of the like the founding principles of above phone is having the freedom to choose, right? And so there's many ways you can communicate with people on the phone, right? You can plug in the SIM card and you can call and text natively. There's the internet messaging that we talked about, and there's a few tools that I'll show to you. And then there's also kind of like an in between, which you can get that internet phone number and not have a SIM card on your phone, and then go out to local cafes and connect to their Wi-Fi network, or your friend's Wi-Fi. And it's kind of interesting, right? It's like you're going back in time. Like we became super wireless, and now we're going to go back and we're going to kind of have like landlines almost, because you have to be in a place you can't be out and about and be connected, but you can do that at home. And yeah, what's with this phone, you'll find you'll have a lot of choices. We've kind of curated all the best solutions and presented them to you. When you get the phone, it's going to have all the solutions out of the box. And John, like you mentioned, the team connected with you today, and there's a free 45-minute setup call, and that's really what it's about, just to figure out. It's very personal. Like, how do you want to use the phone, and let us support you in doing that. Yeah. Would you be able to bring the phone on screen?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, this is the phone, and I'm using it live for you right now. So it's not a pre-recorded video or anything like that, but I'll just show you a few cool things. So, right, this is based off of the Android operating system. So if you've used Android before, it looks really similar to that. You can swipe up to see all your apps. You swipe down, and then you can see kind of your quick tiles, which will allow you to do things like, hey, I can turn it on airplane mode, which everyone already knows about that stuff. But you can do cooler things too, like turn off microphone access for the entire phone or camera access for the entire phone, if you want to be extra careful. And then similarly, the amount of control you have over each specific application is amazing. I'll use Telegram as an example here. So go to app info, and then you can look at the permissions and see that, all right, this, I can turn off its camera and microphone access, but I can also do things like, hey, I'm going to decide what folder this app has access to. Because on a normal phone, you give it access to your storage. It gets access to your entire storage. And with some of these apps like WhatsApp, you don't have any visibility into the source code. You don't actually know what it's doing. And it could be taking all of your photos. I haven't seen this. There's no way to prove this one way or the other unless you're like inside of Facebook. But so with this phone, you can say, all right, hey, I don't want to give this app access to my entire phone. Let me just give you access to my wallpapers folder. And that's it. And when you're communicating with people, you just have to know, all right, I only have access to this folder. You got to think about it. But it's a far more private way to use it. One other thing I'll mention that's kind of in the same vein is doing the same thing with contacts. So instead of, so Signal is one app that a lot of people recommend. I personally don't. I think it's a government honeypot.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's because of the millions of dollars they received from the U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Media, through a nonprofit called the Open Technology Fund. I mean, it's got these red flags over it. But one of the things that they do is, and they have done in the past, is require contacts, or been very aggressive at getting your contacts. And once they have your contacts, they essentially know everyone you're talking to. Now, Signal has millions of users. It runs on Amazon Web Services, and they have all the contacts from most of these users, because most people aren't taking these measures to protect themselves. So in that sense, like, Signal knows exactly who is talking to whom and when they're talking to them, because they're just they're responsible for sending that communication. So if you're using this phone, you can still use Signal. Hey, I'll even say a Signal is very convenient for some people. Just because I don't use it doesn't mean that you don't have to. For some people, it might be easier, or everyone is on Signal. That totally makes sense. But at least you can say, hey, here are my contacts. I only want to talk to Dave and Henry Headstrong here. and only them, and no one else. You're not going to be able to get the rest of my address book. So
That is cool.
yeah, there's a few cool features, and I mean, you wouldn't normally be able to get this on the phone, but I mean, this is a good time to mention the above phone. We didn't write the operating system. This is an open source operating system known as GrapheneOS. They're leading edge of security and privacy on phones, and I encourage you, if you're technical or you're interested in doing this, you can go on you can research GrapheneOS. You can even install it on your own phone if you want. But we really like the operating system. We've verified that it's not making any connections to big tech, and we're really it's a whole community of open source developers that are making tech like this possible. We have just kind of taken the last mile, because when you start going down this rabbit hole, you can do this. You can spend a day or two to learn how to do this and set it up yourself. But then you have to make all of these decisions. So where we come in is for those people who just don't have the time. They're you're not only divesting yourself from tech, but you're doing the food, you're doing all this stuff. So it just comes ready for you to use out of the box.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, I mean, that 45-minute onboarding call, that's something you get nowhere else. I mean, when I used to get phones from Verizon, they give you your phone, here you go, good luck with it. I mean, and it's helpful, because this is different. It's different navigating, especially because of all the choice that you went over, and understanding that you have that choice on permissions and what these apps are able to access. So
absolutely, and that personal touch is really important to us. Like we understand it's an uphill battle, because in a way tech has rotted our brains. Like I don't know how many phone numbers you can recite. I can't recite very many.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's this huge reliance on tech, like not being able to tell directions, not remembering phone numbers. It's all these things that are happening to our memory. And why did I bring that up? Because I think this is a step in the right direction. This is like, all right, hey, technology has gone far enough. Let's take all the useful stuff and let's not go farther into it. So this phone allows for that, right? There are different ways to navigate that require you to think a little bit there. I mean, they're far more private. They also require you to think a little bit, and they work really well. I'll show you one of these examples. So this is OpenStreetMaps here. So I believe I'm in Canada somewhere. But what I really like about OpenStreetMaps is here, I'll give an example. So you can navigate completely offline. I'm somewhere over Alaska. You can see when I get really close, it's actually asking me to download the local map. So I could download all the maps of the United States, or even the whole world for that matter. And I could use this to navigate. I don't need to be connected to the internet for GPS. That's a satellite connectivity. That doesn't have anything to do with cell network connections. So I could literally start a route here, see if I can get it going. And okay, hold on. All right, actions, directions from. All right, I'll put it there. Oh, wait. It's the other map that I usually use for this, but essentially it's fairly easy, right? You can use the map. You can search cities, you can search parks, you can search landmarks. Businesses, you have a little bit of a harder time. So there's usually this step of like, okay, what's the address of that business? And then you type it in on the map. But you can use this to navigate the entire country. I've done a tour of the United States with my friend Derek Bros using this map, and we ended up. We had a really good trip using it. And if you think about it, kind of in like a grid down situation, you'd want something like this. So it's a useful tool. It kind of changes how you think about navigation.
Yeah, glad you brought that up. Just as a mitigation, I'm reading the book right now. I'm been reading it for a couple of weeks now because I put it down and started reading some other things. But that's what I do with books. 1 Second After, which is a fictional book about what would happen after an EMP attack. And well, actually, maybe this isn't the best example because my phone would be fried then. So I would actually need a paper Mac.
Backup above phone in the EMF case.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so not in the case of that, but in the case of not being able to access your Google Maps and there being some sort of outage there, and you got to make decisions to navigate out of a populated area. Having this is it's an incredible asset.
I will shill for us a little bit more and say that if you had an EMF proof bag, right, and you had one of these phones in here and you had the map of the United States, it's not like you couldn't use it. You just wouldn't have the turn-by-turn navigation, but that would probably be easier than a paper map. I don't know. I'm a little bit too young to have used paper maps too much, and so that is a really cool feature. And then there's also tools like this. So this is the internet phone number, which I think you got acquainted with earlier today. So this is an app called Chiogram, and the service that it uses is called XMPP. And I know there's a lot of acronyms, but basically it's a chat protocol that has been around for 20 years. Google Hangouts was built on this. WhatsApp was built on this. Back in the day, Apple Chat, I believe, used to be compatible with this. So it's scaled to millions of users. Just the thing is, it's a free and open source software. So people or companies didn't want to champion this. They kind of made their own in-house versions of it. But it's been around, it's still going, and the important part about it is anyone can set up their own XMPP server and be completely responsible for their communications. And with XMPP, with modern standard, you can have end-to-end encrypted messaging, very similar to the security provided by Signal, WhatsApp. It's really the same in terms of features, and you can also do end-to-end audio calls and video calls. And get this, you can sign up for free. You can get your friends to sign up for free. It works on any device. I could go on, and I will actually, to the point where you can even bridge out to the phone network, which is a service that we provide in partnership with a company called JMP. So you can see here, I am messaging Eve on her phone number because you get a United States or a Canadian phone number. And you can pay for that phone number in Bitcoin, and it's $5 a month. And with it, you can make international calls. You can make international texts. People can call you. From their side, it looks and feels just like a normal phone number, right? You just picked a phone number. But from your side, you can use it with a Wi-Fi. You don't use it with a SIM card. And you can see here, I can call people. I can also write out very long messages and save time by dictating them using this offline voice keyboard. So
that's pretty wild. And then with the phone call, so with that $5 a month, and correct me if I got this wrong, but the way I understood it is, $5 a month, you're able to text with that, and it does look like just a regular text coming through. I messaged my other phone, looks like regular text coming through. You're also able to, I think there's 2 hours of talk time with that. And then if you were to run over that, you could buy more, but I don't know many people who do more than 2 hours of phone calls in a month anymore.
Yeah, for real, me too. And I mean, it's literally, I believe it's like cents. It's like cents per minute or pennies per minute. So it's really not that expensive, and you can pay in crypto. So you basically top up your phone. You pick a phone number, you top up the phone, and then you can use it. It's kind of like pay as you go, right? It's very different from normal plans, but I think it works better. And of course, because we're recommending that you use internet-based communications, hopefully you're not using the phone number as much because it's not private. Even going through this messenger, it eventually gets down in the phone network, and so it's visible. If you wanted to have far better privacy with your calls, you could use something called like Jitsi, and this is a video conferencing app. And what you can do is I can join this meeting, and then I will get a link actually to that I can send out to anyone. And so, John, if I sent it to you, we can kind of join in a call like we have now, or I could text someone this, and they don't need an above phone to use it, kind of like what you were saying earlier. So this is also really cool, and it can do group calls of up to dozens of people. So it's a pretty awesome tool, awesome alternative. And I have forgot to mention, I've been saying all this stuff, but all of this stuff is a part of our privacy suite. Let's see. So these services, in addition to the phones, we run this suite of software services. So under here, so this is the suite, right? And all of these services that I'm talking about are part of that. So this suite is $100 a year, but you get encrypted chat. You get this internet phone number. You get your first month free for that. You get a VPN that's currently encrypting my internet traffic, so it's protecting you from people who are surveilling that way. You get a private email. You get video conferencing. You get a search engine. So you get all of those different, and you get a calendar. The calendar is not on there still. So you get all of these things for $100 a month. I'm happy to show you any of them.
Yeah, it really is totally incredible. So what you showed before with Jitsi with the video app, is that tied into the phone number, or is that separate?
It's separate. Yeah, it's separate. It's basically, think of it as a private Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so one of the concepts about these software services is like, we learned from the unfairness of Apple and Microsoft, where they just try and lock you into their ecosystem, right? And it didn't used to be like this back in the 90s, like AIM Messenger, Apple Messenger, XMPP. They allowed for these to be interoperable. Somewhere along the way, they realized it was more profitable to create your own ecosystem and lock people in it. So they stopped doing that. But we want to carry that dream forward. And all of these services that I'm talking about are universal. So that means that they will work on any phone. Even that chat thing I'm showing you will work on iPhone. You can purchase above suite, and everything that are a part of our services will work on an iPhone, with the exception of the VPN, I believe. And so it doesn't lock you in. You can also use them on your computer. So if you get this up and running, and you have a computer, you can start texting from your computer, which is a really cool thing that iMessage is known for. But now people can do this with free and open source software, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. So speaking of the computer, tell us a little bit about the above phone laptop that's been created. Is this something that's available now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's our laptop is called Above Book, and here I'm gonna bring the landing page on screen here. But this is we're learned everything we did for the phone, and we're taking that philosophy and applying it to the laptop. So I've been championing Linux since I really started my my content venture for Take Back Our Tech, which is kind of the educational initiative. It's like the nonprofit part of what I do. And so I've been encouraging people to get on Linux for a very long time, and people do. And there are a lot of choices and a lot of ways to pet the cat with Linux. So what we decided to do was, all right, let's find all of the best features and usability and put them into one Linux laptop that's really well supported with hardware. So when you open it, it just works. And the answer to that was the Above Book. So this is using reliable hardware. It's using the Lenovo ThinkPad series. And it's also, we've developed our own operating system based off of the Arch Linux operating system, which is, it's an advanced form of Linux, but it's very customizable. So we were able to put guardrails and make things easier to use. And if you go on our website, abovephone.com/book, you'll see a lot of different information there. But essentially, we have made a Linux laptop that you don't need the terminal to use. It has all of the nice things that you see on Above Phone built in, the email, the calendar, the encrypted chat, the video conferencing, everything that I was talking about is usable on the Above Book. When you use the web browser on the Above Book, it's also private. There's already extensions built in. So we just kind of made a bucket list of, hey, here's everything that we would want on a privacy and security laptop, and just implemented it on there. I don't have one ready to show you now, but this is really cool. I'll let you guys check it out on your own, and lots to dig into there.
Very cool. So, based on, the conversation so far, is there any area that, I'm not an expert in this. I'm very much learning. I'm very much just starting down this rabbit hole. So is there anything that you feel is really important, either from an above phone solution standpoint, that above phone solves from a privacy standpoint, or anything else, any features on the phone that I haven't asked about that is something that we should talk about?
Yeah, so the above phone is protecting you from being added on to a number of surveillance databases, and so it's a risk management mechanism. I think there's a better way to say that: risk prevention, right? There's Google's database called SensorVault, which supposedly is not around anymore. They scrapped the project, right? That because people are using Google Maps and Google location services, if your phone turns up in an area, so geofence warrants are a pretty new thing, but law enforcement, if they're having trouble with a case, they can pretty much just pick a time and a date and see all the phones that showed up in that area. And they do this to solve murders. They also used it to see who was at the January 6th protests. So they're kind of using it in those cases. I could also see how it could be applied to, all right, who's abiding by COVID lockdowns, right? It could easily be used for this. So as we see laws get more and more tyrannical, either your phone is going to be your biggest tattletale, right? Which in places like Australia, they do go door to door asking if you're following the laws. Thank God that's not here yet, but you don't want a little snitch in your pocket. And so I think that's one of the best things it can do. All right, I do want to show you one more thing. Okay. So
let me just add before you
absolutely
show this. I mean, I think it's important talking about COVID lockdowns, but what's coming next is climate lockdowns, and that is something that will happen. And yes, your phone will be a snitch if you're out on the road or if you're traveling, more than you're supposed to be. That's something that likely we'll see in the future.
Unless you're on a bike, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Clown world. Okay, so one aspect that I really like about this open source ecosystem is the app stores. So this is a major point I forgot to mention earlier, but you can still get all the apps that you would expect. You are normally used to having on your phone. So this is thanks to an app called the Aurora Store. Our friend Rahul from India, he built Aurora Store so people could privately download apps from the Google Play Store without needing a Google account. So for any of this phone, you don't need a Google account to sign into, but you can see here, I'm able to see these apps. And now one of the coolest parts is that you can have informed consent of your apps before you install them to your phone. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can actually see the trackers, and this is a job search app. So I can go down and I can see, all right, well, what third-party libraries, what trackers are in this here? And we see Google, we see a few Google libraries in here. And so, okay, so this app is going to be communicating to those services while I'm using it. That's not a very good example, but let's do something like a PDF reader, right? Like Adobe. Oh, it's just going to read PDFs. I mean, this thing doesn't even need to connect to the internet. Like, what is the danger here? And then you can see that there's 8 different trackers: Google, Facebook, Branch. So on average, like I was saying earlier, there's 5 trackers per app. So our apps are super dirty, and that's how this surveillance economy has developed. A lot of these apps are free, but you are paying for it more than you know. Because they're building a lot of insights about who you are, and we'll use that to sell you things. And this information eventually is aggregated and eventually bought by law enforcement, state, federal, local, and there's been many cases on this recently. So to do things like the geofence warrants that I mentioned, to find targets of interest that fit within certain demographics that they're looking for. for political campaigning, all that kind of stuff. And so by using this phone, because it is using open source apps, this is an app store called F-Droid, and it doesn't have any of the trackers. Every app on this store is free and open source, meaning that you can go and look at the code. You can also take the code, you can copy the code, you can change it, and that is a more organic, freedom-minded way to use those apps, right? So, like, is there an app that you use regularly? Maybe I can find an alternative on F-Droid.
I don't know. I mean, I use
on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, I use all the dirty apps. I mean, Facebook, Instagram,
dirty apps.
Gmail.
Okay. You use Twitter?
So I do use Twitter. Yes, I do use Twitter.
This is something I found out about recently. I'm on Twitter too, but I hate it, honestly. But I did find this privacy front end for Twitter, and I started to use this because I wanted to have Twitter on my phone. But essentially, when you use the Twitter app, right, you've got those libraries that I was mentioning earlier, and it's also it's tracking. It's tracking what posts you're visiting. It's tracking how you're scrolling. All of those things have been shown that tech companies will track that kind of stuff. So this is a privacy front end for you to use Twitter. So you can use this and you can log into your Twitter account. You can still subscribe to posts and stuff. But you're not dealing with the same level of tracking that you would have with a normal Twitter app, which you can also get. I'm going to show you.
So how would that work if you were going to use that Squawk app on the above phone to tweet something, to send something out?
It's a really good question. I probably demoed it a little bit immaturely. I just started using it. I've been able to like follow other people and stuff. I don't know if I can post myself, but if I can post myself, that's going to be amazing.
Honestly, though, for a lot of people, most people just use Twitter as a news source. So yeah, I mean, it's probably for 90% of people, that's all they need it for.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does let you post, because it does let you log in, right? Mm-hmm. This is a better version of the YouTube app. Normally, when you use the YouTube app on a normal phone, you're listening to your favorite content creator or something, and then you get an ad on your phone. There's no way to skip it. You have to pay $8 a month, whatever it is now, to be able to listen to it when your phone is locked. Like these really basic features that aren't allowed. And so when I use the above phone, what I do is I get more ownership of my content. Here we go. Here's Lions of Liberty. And I can go here and I can start to download all of these episodes. So I can download your past podcast there, and then it'll give me the audio of that. And then I can just keep that content with me on my phone. And this is what I do before a road trip. I'll kind of load up on some things I wanted to follow. But it is transforming the relationship, right? Instead of going directly through a third party like YouTube, you have more power with these privacy front ends for YouTube. So this is called New Pipe, and it's a really good app. Even if you have Android, I recommend you check that app out.
You know what's an interesting analogy you just made me think of? Like, we've kind of become used to with our phones, instead of like going into a store and going into a grocery store and like picking out, oh, I want to buy those pants, or in the grocery store, I need to pick up milk and eggs and butter. The way phones work today, it's you get the whole grocery store and you have no choice. So it's really interesting, kind of, thinking about, sure, I have to proactively think. I'm going on a road trip. I'm not bringing everything with me because I'm not going to be connected, but I can download these 4 YouTube shows that I want to listen to, and then listen to them. You get there, you get on the Wi-Fi, and you're good to go. Of course, you could have the SIM card too and plug in that way and use it as a more traditional phone. But it's great to have options. And as libertarians and freedom lovers, that's what we should want, is options, because it should be our choice, right?
Yeah, totally. And I love the grocery store analogy. I use something similar for like even being able to see the ingredients and what is on your phone, right? And we're kind of able to see the ingredients. We're able to choose what we want to put in our phone. And libertarian principle is full like ownership of your property. And when you use a normal big tech phone, you don't necessarily have that, right? If you're using a Google phone or an Apple phone, Apple especially, if you're downloading music off iTunes, if you break Apple's terms of service, they will take that away from you, and they've taken it away for no reason at all for customers that have spent north of $20,000. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head, but I know all these cases. And at times, if you have saved your life's memories, on your phone, they could take that away from you too. And that's the most fucked up part. There's this guy named Greg Fasca from Florida, and in 2021, they removed. He got locked out of it. He got his phone stolen. And they changed the Apple. They changed the Apple ID password to it, so he got locked out. And Apple just basically kicked him out of the entire Apple ecosystem. And he didn't care too much about his photos his music and stuff. What he cared about was pictures of his daughters who had grown up, but he had pictures of them when they were 8 years old. And he went to California and to Apple and demanded, hey, this is my passport. Like, I am who I say I am. Please give me back access to those photos. Apple did not, they did not listen to him. Right.
That's ridiculous.
So it's when there are things that we hold sacred, including our relationships, our conversations, and our memories, right? And these things belong to us. They don't belong to these tech companies, and that only happens through your consent. So we're hoping that we can start a revolution with the way people use their technology. And so I invite you guys to check out our website, abovephone.com. We have a little we have a little button down there. You can use that to chat directly with us. It's real people. It's not AI. We're not using AI and our support systems. So we'd really like to hear from you. We want to support the movement.
Yeah, and I highly recommend going to the website, checking it out, abovephone.com. As I said at the top of the show, if you do decide, or when you do decide that you want to, purchase an Above Phone, you can enter coupon code LIONS and get $50 off, which is awesome. That's an awesome deal. So hopefully a lot of people will take advantage of that. I think this is going to be, eye-opening content for a lot of people, because I hadn't heard about Above Phone until I met you guys. What was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago? So I think a lot of people in this community, the word is starting to get around. So I'm excited.
Beautiful. Yeah. And we want to support you too in your Agros journey. I encourage the audience watching. I mean, like, let's give John some extra support. And yeah, man, I see very bright things in all of our futures. So yeah, I appreciate you for having me on.
Yep, he is Hakeem Anwar, the CEO of Above Phone, and you can find out more about Above Phone at abovephone.com. Thank you for coming on Finding Freedom, Hakeem.
Thanks, John.
All right, well, that is the end of my interview with Hakeem Anwar, the CEO of Above Phone. I'll just say one more time, if you want to learn more about Above Phone, you can find the link on the show notes page, or wherever you're listening to this episode on your app. You can open it up and use the link there. If you decide to purchase an Above Phone, use that coupon code LIONS to take advantage of $50 off and take advantage of this affiliate program, which helps you and also helps us here at Lions of Liberty. Just want to remind everyone, if you're enjoying this content, if you like what Brian and I are doing on the Lions of Liberty Network, please subscribe. If you want some of our bonus content, if you want to join our community, please check us out on Patreon and Locals to support us in our work. And with that being said, appreciate you tuning in, and I will see everyone next week with another great episode. In the meantime, always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.